Welcome to Trusting After Trauma, Season 9, Redefining Relationships After Parental Narcissistic Abuse. I'm your host, Pi Venus Winslow. Our goal is to provide information and resources to educate and empower viewers to recover from childhood trauma and narcissistic abuse so they can reclaim their happiness, health, and personal power. Our speakers specialize in supporting others through their unique expertise and offer valuable insights, tools, and inspiration to help viewers find the courage and motivation to change their lives. I'm super excited to have Truly Eleanor here with us today. Truly Eleanor is an intuitive dating coach with 17 years of experience, and she helps women over 40 who are done chasing emotionally unavailable guys and wondering why love keeps slipping through their fingers. She helps women heal old patterns and trust themselves again after suffering narcissistic parental abuse so they can attract healthy love that feels like home. She's helped women around the world with emotional healing and intuition since 2008, but she didn't teach about dating until 2018 after breaking her own pattern with unavailable guys and meeting her husband at 44. Today, through her podcast, Stop Chasing Unavailable Guys, her courses and meditations, she helps women become grounded in who they truly are and unavailable to what no longer serves them. And when she's not doing that, you can find her having a belly laugh with her husband, baking something cozy, or fully embracing her Gen X style, metallic eyeshadow, and old school journal. I'm right there with you. Welcome, welcome, truly, Eleanor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Pi. I'm just so happy and excited to be here.
Yeah. So, I love everything I read in your bio and also, can really relate. Tell us a little bit about you, like, and how you
Mhm.
came to do the work that you do in the world today.
Yeah, thank you. This is a very important context for everyone listening to really understand where I'm coming from so that they can get the most out of today's talk. So going back, I'm gonna not go into every detail because that's probably a book, but so I'm an only child, and both my parents are narcissists. My mother being, I guess, what you call covert, and my father more of the grandiose type. And my nana, who's my mom's mom, is also a narcissist and pretty much being the most extreme in the grandiose part and the cruelty, but also the only family member who regularly hugged me and told me she loved me when I was growing up. So you can imagine the massive confusion and shock I was in most of my life. It wasn't until fairly recently when I read something as Julie Hall has this Narcissist Family Files website. And that was the first time that I read that two narcissists can be drawn to each other. And it's quite common that they marry each other, that they're drawn to the power dynamic. And before that, I hadn't seen I'd only seen the dynamic of like the narcissist and the enabler, and it didn't really fit my experience at all because I didn't resonate with it. I was like, but they're both like that. They're both like that, and it's just like, why is that? And so that took a lot of research and understanding. And, looking back, I don't really know how I survived my childhood. I would say mostly resilience and, a lot of adults who stepped in and helped to raise me when my parents would often drop me off with other people or friends of the family or other relatives when they were off doing their thing. So I was lucky in that sense to have other adult role models where it wasn't the constant, confusion or being, feeling like I'm the crazy one. Like, what is this family? What are we all about? And so, of course, my issues started to show up in relationships, very chaotic, a lot of codependence and relationships where I'd be in a relationship with an alcoholic or a drug addict and just huge amounts of drama. And, a major turning point for me was when I went to a therapist and I was like, I just really have to talk about this. And I told her about my childhood and how my parents behaved. And she said to me, "Oh, are you sure you're not exaggerating?" And I knew then that something was really, really wrong because I was like, I can't believe that, someone like a therapist would say that to me. And I really needed to find a way to get help, like real help for this, the pain that I had lived through and it was bleeding into all my relationships and into adulthood. And so my first healing experience was becoming a Reiki teacher and having my Reiki teacher mentor me. And the energetic attunements really opened me up to a huge amount of emotional healing as well as the energetic healing as well. And my intuition blossomed. I was really open to realizing I was very intuitive. It was my guiding force, and I started using my intuition professionally in 2007 and then coaching and doing intuitive healing for clients in 2008. And it was really about their spiritual journey and healing. And the interesting part was, as I helped my clients, they were like, well, I really need help with relationships. And at that time, as you said in my bio, my relationship scene was just what I call the hot mess express. It was just really still very toxic and unhealthy. And I was, compartmentalizing. I was like, I'm really good at this spiritual healing part, but my relationship piece is really a mess. And so I had a pivotal breakup with someone who I was reunited with after, he was my first boyfriend at 16. And I thought, oh, this, we're star-crossed lovers. Oh my God, the universe has brought us together after 25 years or whatever it was. And it crashed and burned the same that all of the other relationships had. And I was really, really hinging on that one to work. It was like this, okay, finally, after all of this, these crappy relationships, this is the one, this is it. I did it. And it just crashed and burned. And so I had pretty much like a huge meltdown over that and decided, okay, that's it. That was my enough is enough point where I wasn't going to put up with this anymore. I was going to figure this out. I was going to do it. And I went into what I call a deep healing phase. And that was when a year later when I met my husband. And so the question of, why do I, with all the healing I had done previously, why am I still such a mess in the relationship area? That spurred me to, figure that out and then get past that. And my business became a focus on dating in 2018 and just really, I'd say it found me because I kept trying to run away from it for so long and say, no, no, I can't help people with relationships. I'm a mess. I'm a mess. And then, so that's how it evolved.
Wow, that's such a powerful story of transformation. And
Thank you.
so that your brand, Truly Eleanor, tell us a little bit
hmm
about where that came from.
Yeah. So, the having to kind of disentangle myself from the narcissists in my life and my parents and figure out who I am and my true self became my mission, and to live from my true self and to live guided by that. And who am I actually, not who I've been programmed to be, and who do I think I am, and who have I been told I am, and like getting rid of all that and being like, this is me. I'm my true self. I'm truly Eleanor. And that's actually been since the very beginning of in 2008 when I wanted to find a name for myself and my business. It was truly Eleanor. And it was interesting because a business coach said to me, oh, I don't know if anyone's going to really resonate with that name, and maybe you should change the name. And I remember having such a reaction to that. Like, that is, no, I cannot change. This is the name because this is what I'm embodying and helping other people see is possible, and it has to be this name. And so it just really stuck.
Good. Good. I love that. Yeah, because,
Hmm.
well, I mean, I too found a name that really stuck with me. And of course, that's also part of my business name as well. So,
Yeah.
where you are now, in your experience and what you see with the people that you talk to and the people that you work with, what patterns do you see in adult dating
Hmm.
after, for people who have had or experienced narcissistic or emotionally immature parents?
Yeah. So there's some definite themes there, and I would say one of them is the over analyzing. So, analyzing the text messages, the facial expressions. It's like you have like a PhD in other people's behaviors and actions and intentions, and it's all about that. And the focus on the other person where you're, literally outside of your body and it's all about the other person. So that's been a really common theme that I've seen. And, second to that being like a lot of self-doubt and second guessing yourself, that deep insecurity that you have from being raised by a narcissist. It just you're not connected to yourself. You don't know who you are. And so when you go out there and you want to connect with someone, it's like just all of that doubt and second guessing comes flooding in, and it's much more than I would say someone who hasn't been raised like that. It's not trusting yourself to pick the right partner, and you can't even trust your own feelings. And so I see a lot of people saying, I don't know what this means. I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel about the other person. I don't even know what I'm feeling, so
Yeah, yeah.
that, sorry, cough. So people pleasing is another one, I would say, like the over focus on the other person. And the interesting distinction is it's like how the person is focused on how do they feel? How does the other person feel? What can I do for them? How can I emotionally prop them up and doing all the heavy lifting emotionally? And there's no question of, I like to change it around and say, well, how do you feel when you're around them?
Mhm.
Instead of how do you feel about them and how are they feeling? It's a direction back towards the self and say, the clues are going to be in how I feel around the person. And that's the learning.
Mhm.
And the other important piece is just being in your head instead of your heart. And in my family, intelligence was a huge thing. It was like the only thing, being smart, being intelligent, and there was nothing whatsoever about feelings because nobody knew how to deal with feelings or access them or anything. So I would say we were all pretty much like talking heads, and I had to learn how to be in my heart. I had to learn emotional intelligence. I already inherently had that in some ways, but had to unlearn what I had been taught to be in my head all the time. And so I see that a lot is like having a wall up, intellectualizing, the brain is everything, the mind is everything. And that's why I went into the intuition work. And I would say the last part is like even the confusion around misusing your intuition, because when I first became, intuitive and was doing it for work for other people, my focus was entirely on being highly intuitive for the other person, like being able to, or even in dating, being able to tune into the other person's energy. What color is their aura? What's their trauma? What's their feeling? Oh, let me tune in and see what's going on with them. And again, it was a complete outer focus. And then not, of course, you're not going to find someone you connect with because you're not in your own body and you're not intuitively sensing yourself. And so that's what I see a lot as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally resonate with everything you're saying. Sometimes I was thinking, oh yeah, she's talking about me. Me too. So how does a person start to rebuild trust in themselves, especially if they've experienced like gaslighting or, they've just learned over a long period of time to doubt their own perceptions?
Yeah. So I developed this framework over decades for myself and then with the people I've worked with. And I call it the Let Love In method. And it's three pieces of the framework. The first piece that, a lot of us talk about is that I call it true awareness because you're becoming aware of yourself, your patterns, your themes, your emotions, and turning it on yourself and not necessarily the awareness of your family and what they did and who they are. And, you want to turn it in and see what your own awareness is going to bring to you that's going to help you to change and overcome the painful patterns. And so you can look even, for example, the awareness of what are your relationship themes is a good exercise, like looking back and saying, what has been the through line through my relationships? And, for me, it was like betrayal. And you could look back at every relationship and say, oh, yeah, it's the same theme kept coming up, is this sense of betrayal. And so you can dive into that. But I always caution people the second part is immediately going into the true acceptance. So I don't want you to say, oh my God, I can't believe I do this. I have this pattern and look at all these relationships and I've wasted 20 years of my life. And I want you to go into that acceptance and say, instead, like it makes perfect sense I would have this pattern and it's okay given my upbringing and how I was taught and what was the losses I've gone through. Of course, it makes perfect sense. And I can heal from this and I don't have to make myself wrong. And that's the true acceptance part, which is very powerful. And often we want to run from that part. We want to beat ourselves up and just sort of criticize ourselves as we have been growing up, typically very highly criticized. And so it's like an unlearning and going into that acceptance. And then the last really important one is the true connection to yourself. So deeply connecting into your heart every day, just taking a moment to connect into your body and have your hand on your heart and doing those kind of exercises, which seems simplistic, but it's a habit. It's becoming more familiar with your own body, with closing your eyes and tuning into who you are beyond your personality, beyond your experiences, your suffering, all of those things, and to find that core essence within you. Another exercise with around the true connection is like the yes and no in your body, which we can do that later if you want to get into more into that. But it's really about connecting into the body, your heart, your intuition, and getting to know yourself, really getting to know your true self. And so I find this framework is really nice to be able to cycle through it, and you can go through it as many times as you want
Mhm.
and go into one or the other more deeply. But I would say you would always want to start with that true awareness.
Mhm. Yeah, very good place to start. That's a wonderful method. Thank you for sharing that
Mm.
with us
Yeah,
on
you're
how we
welcome.
can start, learning how to trust ourselves.
Hmm.
So I know a lot of people are very interested in learning more about the dating aspect. And so
Hmm.
what are your top signs of emotional unavailability versus
Hmm.
emotional safety?
Yeah. So this is another one that comes from the awareness of the self and what you might be experiencing. That now this is about the other person, but this is also how you might navigate these signs. So I'll tell you the things I've noticed, and then how you can navigate through that from your own perspective. And so someone who's emotionally unavailable, they're going to be confusing. So they're going to send mixed signals. It's going to be, I feel very confused around this person. They're saying one thing, they're doing another, they're acting a certain way at a restaurant and then acting another way in another, context. And I just feel very highly confused around them. And you might say, well, this is how I was feeling growing up. And so you obviously don't want to be with someone who's constantly changing who they are. Like everyone has a bad day. Everyone's going to be, maybe they're in a different mood one day. That's fine. But this is a consistent mixed signal. So that's one big, I guess, red flag you could say. Another one is that they want, like they're not really committed to something. So maybe they just want friendship and flirting or friends with benefits, or they want to get into that emotional aspect, but they don't want to commit to dating someone or getting into a relationship. And you can see that by sort of going back to the mixed signals again. They're not going to say, I'm looking for a relationship. They're going to be like, well, I'm trying to figure this out and, let's see how it goes. And I don't know really how I feel yet. And sort of dangling that carrot in front of you. And they want everything that will benefit them and not saying 100%, this is what I'm looking for.
Mhm.
And so the cousin to that is they're hot and cold. So maybe one day they will say, I'm looking for a long-term relationship. I want to get serious. I'm really interested in getting to know you. And then the next date, they'll just be pulled back, very indifferent, just acting like, well, okay, I'm not sure if I really have time today. I'm going to have to leave early. And you're just like, wow, is this a different person or what? And this is kind of more nuanced mixed signals. This is like examples of the mixed signals.
Mhm.
And again, they're not sure what they want. So they might say, well, I might go traveling. I've really always wanted to go to Europe and do this and that. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to be doing in a year or so. And, and then you're just like, well, I don't understand. And the main feeling here is the confusion. You can't get a handle on it. You can't grasp what they want, how they're feeling about you, what they're doing. And it's just the moving target kind of feeling.
Mhm. Very, those are
Yeah.
very, very, very powerful tips.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really appreciate you pointing them out very plainly
Hmm.
and giving examples of that.
Hmm.
Um, so So what I was thinking while you were explaining that,
Yeah.
what I notice my pattern has been in the past is when somebody is emotionally unavailable, it like activates
Hmm.
it activates this thing from my childhood where, okay, I have to now like prove my
Hmm.
value so that I can win their um
Hmm.
their availability or their
Yeah.
attention and stuff like that. And that obviously is coming from a place of fear and scarcity in me, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So when somebody's tuning into themselves, right? How can they tell the difference between their intuition and fear in a
Yeah.
body-based way?
Yeah. So this is one of the biggest things I find that people struggle with is not trusting those signals, not knowing what's what inside of them. And so, like a good overview of that is intuition always feels very slowed down. It's like you have a sense of there's all the time in the world when I'm feeling this. It feels expansive, it feels grounded. And you get the sense like everything's okay. Like, even though I'm nervous or this is going on, I feel inherently like everything's okay. And there's a non-judgmental sense to those intuitive messages. It's not about the other person, it's about what do you desire and going in that direction, going in the direction that you truly want. So it's really nothing against the other person. The intuitive messages will not show up in a highly judgmental kind of way. It's like an open-hearted, yes, that makes sense that I wouldn't be compatible with this person and I'm going to wish them well and I'm going to go on another date with somebody else. And it's not like, oh, this person is, so as opposed to fear, fear is revved up. It's like that caffeine induced feeling like rapid fire thoughts. It's urgent, like life or death, like, oh, I can't. This person's, got really bad energy and they're toxic and I better get away from them as fast as possible. And if I can't go on this date or a fear thought would be like, don't go on this date or something really bad's going to happen or you're going to get in, connected to their toxic energy. And it's a really urgent, tense, wound up, really rapid fire kind of feeling. And so that's a really good way to be able to tell the difference between the two, if that makes sense.
That does make sense
Yeah.
totally, and I think very, very important for people to learn how to
Hmm.
distinguish between. So, what does stop chasing and start choosing look like practically in early dating?
Yeah, so again, the chasing is going to feel like you're just showing up without preparing, without doing that connection to the body, feeling anxious, wanting a certain, outcome, wanting something to go a certain way, and being really unsure of what you want. Maybe just like, I don't know. Like on my first date with my husband, I was like battling the chasing and the choosing. So I had prepared for my date and said to myself, I'm going to go for this date. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to also set my intentions for being myself, for expressing myself openly, and then deciding how long I want to stay. So it's always very good to choose like, I'm going to just stay for an hour, no matter what, and see what happens. I'm not going to say it goes really well. Your intention might be a boundary, like, I'm only going to hug the person or shake their hand, and I'm not going to kiss them. And you decide that beforehand to give your body that really nice sense of, I'm choosing this. I'm walking into this knowing what I'm doing, how long I'm going to stay, what my boundaries are, and also giving yourself an out if it feels like this date is really not for me, finding a like an exit strategy or what you're going to say. And as opposed to the chasing, you would just show up very sort of very chaotic, very anxious, not prepared, and focused really on like you were saying, how can I make this person want me or choose me? And that's the chasing energy as opposed to the choosing.
Yes, I love that. Very, very important. So what would be like one simple tool that viewers who are here today watching this interview, a simple tool that they can use this week to
Yeah.
choose differently, get into
Hmm.
this practice?
Yeah. So really rebuilding that self-trust after you've been gaslit or you don't really know what your emotions are, what your intuition is saying to you is the yes no exercise I was mentioning earlier. And it's a very simple exercise. It's just taking a moment. This is not before a date necessarily. This is something you're doing in a complete preparation of looking for a relationship and figuring out, what is my body signal when it's a yes? And you just simply get comfortable. You can be laying down, you can be seated and closing your eyes and tuning in and saying, what is my yes? I'm waiting for some kind of a sensation. So, for example, my yes is my heart lifts up and opens. So it's almost like a blossoming of a flower opening up, and it's a feeling of that opening up. And I actually had that feeling when I first turned the corner and I saw my husband, and just my body lit up and my heart did that. So that's my yes in my body. And then you could journal about that a little bit more in detail to really get a handle on what it feels like, what that yes is like. And then you do it for the no. And so for me, the no is in my stomach or solar plexus area. It's almost like a cattle prod, like I've been shocked with, you know, um, something like electricity, and it feels like a jolt, like a shock. And that's the no for me. That's like, ugh, that's my no. And so you could do that exercise and then practice it. So using the yes and the no, say, what's my intention for dating? Should I go on this date? Or what does my body and my intuition say about going on this date? And see what it says, the yes or no. And then using that to guide yourself and start small that way.
That's wonderful, wonderful exercise.
Mhm.
So yes, I'm going to encourage
Thank
everybody to do that
you. Mhm.
exercise this week and start tuning into your yes, your no, how it feels in your body and your intuition. So this is my last question. Well, almost my
Mhm.
last question, but what compassionate truth would you offer the woman who fears that she'll be alone forever?
Yeah. Um, And so as you know, if you've been listening to my story, know that I understand this on a very deep level. You know, it is as a very real fear, especially if you've been raised by narcissists. And I want to actually just offer the truth is that maybe you've always felt alone this whole time. And what you're really afraid of is that it will never change. That feeling of being isolated or alone is going to continue. And what I want to say is you have the power, the desire, the ability to make these changes, to overcome this, to move towards what you truly desire, to have the love that feels like home. And I would describe it as that is a give and take. It's a mutual love. It is a safe and calm feeling of being with someone where you can be yourself. And that is possible for you. And it's something you can have. It just takes the learning and the healing and some new actions, but it's absolutely possible.
I love that. And I'm gonna say, I'm gonna chime in and say it's absolutely true because I
Hmm.
also found my forever person just,
Exactly.
just about a year ago myself when I decided that I was ready to do that. And a lot of the things that you talked about today were things I needed to practice and to learn how
Hmm.
to do. And so I just want to say thank you for being here and sharing all of this with you and with us. And you have even more to share. You've got a free gift to offer our
Yeah.
viewers today. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. And I want to thank you so much, Pi, for, allowing me to voice my story and to talk about this in this context, which I haven't done in this full capacity before. So I really appreciate this opportunity. And I hope that, the listeners or viewers got a lot out of this. So, and if you did resonate with what I was talking about and, kind of being like, that sounds like me, and you want a simple way to, date with the more self-trust, like I was talking about, learning that self-trust, you can download my free guide. It's the link I'm sure is going to be in the notes there, and it includes my top apps for women over 40. So a lot of women are like, which apps do I go on? Which ones are the best? So it gives you a nice guideline on which apps will give you the best chance. And then the important part is that checklist that I was talking about earlier is spotting that emotional unavailability and early. So you're not spending all your time kind of chasing around and getting further away from what you truly desire, which is to have that safe and mutual love. And so that's a free gift I have for the audience today.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yes, I'm going to encourage everybody to click on that link so that you can get that resource on
Mhm.
dating apps for women over 40 and the emotional availability checklist, which will be
Yeah.
very helpful as
Hmm.
as you're moving through this process yourself of learning, how to connect to your intuition, how to connect to what it is that you want and who
Hmm.
you are and what you value, and to find somebody who aligns with that as opposed to trying to chase somebody who
Yeah.
is maybe giving the signal that they're not going to join you there, but
Yeah.
catching those signals early is going to
Hmm.
just help you to to stick to that strategy of finding
Hmm.
somebody who is a good fit. Because, like you, Eleanor, I am guilty of chasing. I am guilty of trying to make things happen and
Hmm.
being attached to
Hmm.
the outcome, and it always ended up with me with a broken heart, and I
Yeah,
was just done with it. And
exactly.
I love your story. I love this conversation because I know it's possible, just like you do. And
Hmm.
sharing this with other women, um, it lights me up.
Yeah.
It just gives me so much hope for healing after narcissistic abuse. So
Yeah. It's been a wonderful conversation and it's so important. And like I said, this kind of found me where I was like, okay, this is so important that I've got to turn around and use what I've learned to help other people. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yes. Well, thank you for Eleanor, for being truly Eleanor, and for joining us
Thank you.
today and for offering your free gift. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I want to thank everybody else who is here, who is joining us for Trusting After Trauma Season 9. We hope that you enjoy this journey with our experts on how we can redefine relationships after parental narcissistic abuse and heal our body, mind, and spirit to live joyful, authentic lives.